Hello everyone. Today our guest is Jehan Ara. Jehan is currently serving as the founder and CEO of Katalyst Lab, which is a startup accelerator, and it also runs a women leadership program. She has previously served as the president of Pasha for 20 years. To help create linkages with local and international partners, she founded the Nest IO, which is a technology incubator backed by Google and Samsung. A fun fact is that she was referred to as the big bird at Nest.
She also serves as a member of PM's Advisory Council on IT and Digital Economy, a member of APAC Content Advisory Board for TikTok. Jahan is also part of the World Bank Advisory Group on Gender Diversity. Beyond all of this, she has recently been awarded with Tamgha-e-Imtiaz for her significant contributions in the Pakistan IT industry.
Assalamu alaikum, ma'am. सबसे पहले तो thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to be able to talk to you. Or at the short notice where you agreed to do this, so
Thank you for asking me. It's good to be here.
It's absolutely our pleasure to be having this conversation.
Thank you.
Or secondly, we would like to congratulate you on the Tamgha-e-Imtiaz.
Thank you so much. I'm still wondering why I got it, but still.
Let's talk about that. I think that's going to be one of our topics essentially. Ke Tamgha-e-Imtiaz, getting it itself is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Like in the fact ke in the IT industry, a woman getting a Tamgha-e-Imtiaz, that's literally like unprecedented, right? So how did you feel when you got the call कि यार मुझे मिल रहा है Tamgha-e-Imtiaz? Did you tell anybody? Who was the first person you called?
I didn't actually. I was told by a friend that this is happening.
Right.
And I said, what is it? To be honest, I didn't know what a Tamgha-e-Imtiaz was.
Okay.
You know, people who are doing things, who are busy in their lives, awards, Tamgha, all of this is something that they don't really think about.
That's okay.
They focus so much on their work. And खुद को तो कभी realization नहीं होता कि हमें मिलेगा कभी. You know, so when they said कि आपको ये मिल रहा है, मैंने कहा है क्या? तो फिर उसने बताया कि ये होता है, recognition होती है, it's a civil award, और president की तरफ से आपको मिलेगा. तो मैंने कहा that's huge, you know, like, but why? मैंने कहा no, for your contribution to the IT sector over the years. तो मैंने कहा अच्छा है, IT sector को बहुत कम recognize करते हैं. एंड मुदस्सिर शेखा को भी मिल रहा था और आसिफ पीर को भी मिल रहा था सितारे इम्तियाज. So I said, you know, there are 3 people who are part of the IT sector who are being recognized, and I think this is great. It's about time because IT sector ने काफ़ी contribute किया है to the growth of Pakistan, and it can do even more. So this will show people, you know, the direction in which we should be going. मगर मुझसे ज़्यादा जो एक्साइटमेंट था ना, वो मेरी जो कम्युनिटी ऑफ यंगस्टर्स है ना, उनमें जो एक्साइटमेंट था, दैट वाज लाइक इट वाज एज इफ दे वर गेटिंग इट. तो उससे मुझे ज़्यादा खुशी हुई. बट आई मिस्ड माय फादर, इसलिए कि उनको जो खुशी होनी थी ना इससे, ही बिलीव्ड इन दिस थिंग्स एंड ही फेल्ट दैट पीपल शुड बी रिकग्नाइज्ड. तो यू नो, ही इज नो लॉन्गर विद अस, सो इट वाज that was one thing I felt sad about. Magar वैसे, you know, it was a surprise.
Of course. Nee, I think parents usually जो होते हैं ना, they get happier about your achievements more than you do, in fact. So, of course, it's understandable you probably missed him a lot.
जहान सो ये अगर हम इसकी बात करें कि रिकग्निशन IT में आपने कहा वो नहीं इतनी अप्रिशिएट या लुक अप टू पहले की जा रही थी. बहुत गैप भी था, अवेयरनेस नहीं थी लोगों में. लेकिन जब मैंने ये सुना और पढ़ा ना कि जहाँ आरा बेसिकली नॉन CS बैकग्राउंड से एक ऐसी इंडस्ट्री में जहाँ पे मे बी उनकी एजुकेशनल एक्सपर्टीज़ नहीं थी, ठीक है, और वो उसने ऐसी इंडस्ट्री चूज़ की जिसमें मतलब वो टैप मार्केट नहीं थी उस हिसाब से बैक इन द डे, स्पेशली इन पाकिस्तान जहाँ पे टेक हमेशा ही लेट आ रहा होता था हमारे पास. आपने अपना रास्ता बना लिया नॉन टेक को टेक के अंदर घुस के, और यहाँ पर माशाल्लाह आज आपको तमगा-ए-इम्तियाज़ भी मिला है. तो ये जर्नी किस तरह से बनी, एंड टेक में आपने पेनिट्रेट कैसे कर लिया इस मार्केट में?
देखिए, unknowingly, to be honest. तो when I started, मेरा passion हमेशा it was for writing, for communication, and that kind of thing. So that's what I did. Marketing was a very strong point as far as I was concerned. But multimedia पुराने ज़माने में जब शुरू हुआ था, before you guys were born. So I'm talking about the mid 80s probably.
Okay.
No, even later. So early 90s. तो उस वक्त there was an organization called Macromedia. I think it might still exist. जो Dreamweaver or Flash or Authorware or Director, those kind of interactive software जो बनाते थे. I got connected with them. And I was really super excited by what they were doing and the ability they were giving to marketeers to produce content. तो अब तो हम कंटेंट के बारे में बहुत बात करते हैं कि कंटेंट क्रिएटर्स हैं ये. उस जमाने में भी कंटेंट क्रिएटर्स थे बट nobody knew them as content creators. And Macromedia and their products allowed people to create content. And mostly people in marketing, in advertising and areas such as those. So I got involved and then they asked me when I moved back to Pakistan, which was mid-90s, तो उन्होंने कहा कि आप, why don't you become a distributor of our products? So I tried, to be honest. I went to all these big companies and tried to tell the marketing teams कि देखें इससे ये कर सकते हैं वो कर सकते हैं. They didn't understand. कहने लगे पता नहीं क्या है. मतलब this, first of all, IT wasn't something that they thought could be integrated into what they were doing.
Okay.
उसके लिए तो एक डिपार्टमेंट होता था ना जो डेटा एंट्री और मुख्तलिफ चीजें. It was not an integral part of any organization. तो फिर हम लोगों ने सोचा, we were a small team, हमने ये सोचा कि okay, we need to show them what can be done. So we started creating our own products. तो आपने पता नहीं देखा हो या नहीं, हमने फैज़ अहमद फैज़ पे एक प्रोडक्ट बनाया था DVD, जिसमें totally got involved with the Faiz family, brought in content that was very unique and developed the product which then sold overseas as well as locally. हमने art पे बनाया था 50 years of Pakistani art पे an interactive product. फिर जाफर जी के पास हम गए, हमने कहा आप product catalog CD पे बना सकते हैं. तो उनके लिए हमने बना के दिखाया. तो you had to it was more a show and tell कि देखिए ये आप कर सकते हैं. There wasn't a lot of money in it because we had to prove ourselves. But we did that. और उसके बाद then people started to take notice. So this was my entry into IT, and I didn't know that it was IT that I was getting into. It was more, let's use what exists to create something that is really phenomenal. So वो मेरी एंट्री थी. उस वक्त फिर मैंने ज़हीर अहमद खुदवाई, who was the main part of our team, he was the brain behind all the content for fairs and all of that, and he understood technology more than many of us. And I told him, I said कि पाशा ज्वाइन करना चाहिए. It's the industry association for IT. He said क्यों ज्वाइन करना चाहिए? मैंने कहा because it seems like we are in the middle of tech and content, so we should be part of the tech association. He said नहीं, ये सब associations बेकार होते हैं, कोई फायदा नहीं है. Let's just focus on what we're doing. तुमको है शौक तो तुम ज्वाइन कर लो. तो since I was the CEO of the company, he didn't want to be CEO. Otherwise, he should rightfully have been the CEO. तो उन्होंने कहा तुम ज्वाइन कर लो. So then I went and I joined Pasha. और फिर वहाँ मैंने started creating trouble, Wherever I go, I'm a troublemaker in the good sense.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So that was, as you said, that was my entry into IT. And so it wasn't conscious. It was an unconscious sort of penetration into the tech sector.
So you're still a marketer who is in the tech industry?
Yes.
Okay.
You see, people, I think there's so much of a misunderstanding of what the tech industry is.
That's true.
IT is a combination of everything.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be in isolation. So आप UI UX की अब देखो कितनी talk है, मगर it's always been an integral part of IT. You cannot create without having design, without having content, without having marketing people, without having people who are in training. There's so many things that are a part of the IT sector, not just software engineers and developers who are key. But और भी चीजें जो है ना, they need to work together in order to make the IT industry what it is.
ये बहुत मुश्किल चीज़ है, पता है, लोगों को समझानी, क्योंकि
करना पड़ेगा, समझाना पड़ेगा.
हम खुद जैसे अभी टेक इंडस्ट्री में हैं और एक टेक कंपनी में काम कर रहे हैं, जब भी हम किसी इंजीनियर से बात कर रहे होंगे ना, यार आपको पता है इस चीज़ का,
स्पेशली अगर नंबर्स की बात आ जाए ना, तो दे विल बी लाइक यार यू डोंट नो व्हाट यू टॉकिंग अबाउट, बिकॉज हम इंजीनियर हैं, हमें मैथ आती है. तो इट गेट्स वेरी हार्ड टू इवन लाइक कोई मॉडल आप उन्हें एक्सप्लेन कर रहे हो, एनी एनालिसिस दैट यू आर प्रेजेंटिंग, वो सेकंड गेस करने लग जाते हैं. यार this person is not a techie, they don't know what they're talking about, let's see के अंदर घुस के देखते हैं क्या सीन चल रहा है. So it's
अच्छा, मैंने एडवांस मैथ्स की हुई है.
that's nice.
So I didn't take engineering as a subject.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason also was कि उस जमाने में CS wasn't a thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was too early for CS to be recognized as a stream. तो मैंने कभी सोचा ही नहीं इसके बारे में. मैंने कहा अच्छा ये कम्युनिकेशन का एरिया मुझे परस्यू करना है, राइटिंग परस्यू करनी है. But maths was something I was passionate about. So maths is something I studied, and engineering maths.
अच्छा.
Nice.
So I think techies who assume that maths cannot be something that people in other streams are also good at, that's wrong.
Yeah.
ये
Absolutely.
एक जो respect होता है of each other's abilities and talent and knowledge, we need to develop that. तो मैं ये नहीं कह सकती कि वो software engineer या developer या mechanical engineer है तो वो he doesn't know what he's doing. Why am I assuming that he doesn't know? He probably knows a lot about what he's doing,
Yeah.
but he also needs to understand what I'm doing and what you're doing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Agreed.
And that respect of each other's capabilities
बिल्कुल.
and how it integrates is very important to the success of a business.
Yeah.
तो वो slowly अब होना शुरू हुआ है.
Yeah.
लोगों को ये समझ में आना शुरू हुआ है. कंटेंट के बारे में लोग अब अच्छा this is the strength of content. तो अब लोगों ने टीम्स भी रखनी शुरू हो गई. अब मेरे यहाँ तो बहुत छोटी टीम है. वी नॉट लाइक Ubisoft के इतनी बड़ी साइज ऑफ कंपनी की जरूरत है. मेरे यहाँ टेकीज नहीं है, बट एवरी पर्सन ऑन माई टीम इज टेक्निकली केपेबल ऑफ डूइंग समथिंग.
Yeah.
तो कंटेंट के लोग हैं, UI UX डिजाइन की टीम मेरी स्ट्रांग है. फिर प्रोग्राम्स की टीम है दैट रन मोस्ट ऑफ द प्रोग्राम्स. तो उसकी वजह से मेरे ख्याल में एक रिस्पेक्ट उन्होंने एक दूसरे के लिए, I can see it. And they're all like in their 20s or early 30s. But they realize कि एक दूसरे के बगैर हम नहीं कर सकते.
ऐसे आई थिंक वो स्टीरियोटाइप्स ना हमने रोल्स के साथ जनरली पहले अटैच किए हुए थे. इट्स नॉट जस्ट अस कि हमें मैथ नहीं आती वाली चीज़ नहीं है. इवन कि अगर आप सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर्स की बात करें तो देयर इज दिस स्टिग्मा अटैच किया, उनको ना कम्युनिकेशन स्किल्स उनके वीक होंगे. सो ये दोनों
और
तरफ से
जरूरी नहीं है.
एग्जैक्टली
yes.
बिकॉज यू विल सी सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर्स हु आर वेरी वेल स्पोकन, वेल रेड, दे विल बी एबल टू टॉक टू यू बहुत अच्छे तरीके से. उनके
उनके
कम्युनिकेशन
interest
स्किल्स
पे
बहुत
भी-
अच्छे होते हैं.
उनके इंटरेस्ट पे भी डिपेंड होता है. और फिर आप देखें कि टेक में अगर आप मेडिकल टेक्नोलॉजी पे काम कर रहे हैं तो डोमेन एक्सपर्टीज भी मुख्तलिफ अब आपको चाहिए होती है. आप एडटेक पे कर रहे हैं तो एजुकेशन एक्सपर्ट्स भी चाहिए होते हैं. तो यू कांट एक्सक्लूड एनीवन.
Absolutely true. That's a very nice way to look at it, I would say.
अच्छा फील हुआ ना अपने आप के बारे में भी.
Agreed. Acha, so we talked about the IT industry, but let's also talk about the fact that you have worked in multiple sectors. So you worked in Pasha, you were working at World Bank as an advisor, in an advisory role. Phir you started your own thing, Nest आपने start किया, Katalyst Labs start करी. तो like ये multiple different किस्म के sectors हैं. और we always feel like, again, this could be a misconception, कि all of these sectors require a different personality type.
अच्छा, 2 सेक्टर्स आपने मिस आउट कर दिए बाय द वे.
नहीं बहुत ज़्यादा है, मैं सब में घुसी नहीं.
मैं शिपिंग में भी थी
या
शुरू में. यस
और
आपने स्टार्ट किया था.
इवन बिफोर दैट मार्केटिंग एंड एडवर्टाइजिंग में
Yeah.
तो खैर थी.
Yeah.
तो I don't like being compartmentalized. और मेरे ख्याल में ये हम लोग बहुत करते हैं लोगों के साथ कि ये अगर ये है तो ये नहीं हो सकता, और इसके स्किल्स हैं तो उसके नहीं हो सकते. I think a well-rounded individual can contribute to any area. और मैंने ये देखा है सिर्फ अपने बारे में नहीं. I've seen people whose interests and abilities grow with time.
Okay.
Yeah.
और फिर अब किसी चीज से क्या आपने शुरू किया है तो जरूरी नहीं है कि वो इंटरेस्ट आपको जिंदगी भर रहे. Things happen, markets change, interests of the community and society change, needs change. तो इस हिसाब से आपको अपने को थोड़ा बहुत चेंज करना पड़ता है. Sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. मगर that takes place learning के through. You
Okay.
have to continue to educate yourself.
Yeah.
और ये सिर्फ बुक लर्निंग की बात नहीं है, अब ऑनलाइन लर्निंग की सिर्फ बात नहीं है. इट ऑल्सो आई कैन लर्न फ्रॉम यू एंड यू कैन लर्न फ्रॉम मी. तो सब लोग कहते हैं हम हाउ कैन वी यू लर्न फ्रॉम अस, यू आर सो मच मोर एक्सपीरियंस. नो. सो यंग पीपल आर excited about different things and they are picking up things that maybe when I was growing up they didn't exist or I didn't know about. So that's something that I can learn from you.
Yeah.
And then some of my experience you can adopt and learn from that.
Yeah.
And that's how we change. So industries, हर industry में certain type of capability की ज़रूरत होती है, certain personalities की ज़रूरत होती है. I get excited about different kinds of things.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm able to penetrate a different industry segment, and I'm able to either contribute to it, learn from it, jointly collaborate with someone on it. तो इस तरह मेरे ख्याल में all of us can do that if we don't compartmentalize ourselves and say कि नहीं ये तो सिर्फ वो कर सकता है और ये इस background वाला शख्स कर सकता है. I think that's the magic of it all.
लेकिन स्किल्स और इंटरेस्ट तो चलें वी कैन डेवलप ओवर टाइम, बट अगर आपके फाउंडेशनल वैल्यूज के साथ कहीं पे क्लैश हो रहा है तो वहाँ
वैल्यूज के साथ नहीं क्लैश होता. सो व्हाट इज इम्पोर्टेंट टू मी are people. What's important to me is compassion. What's important to me is the people around me feel that they are doing something that is of value, that they grow as long as they work with me or are associated with me in any way. वो values, वो ethics don't change. वो जो core foundation आपका होता है that you have grown up with. So I believe each of us is a production of the kind of people that we have grown up with. So whether it's our families, our parents contribute a lot to our initial set of values. फिर आप यूनिवर्सिटी या स्कूल जाते हैं, your teachers contribute a lot to who you become, right? फिर आपके peers, आपके friends होते हैं, they contribute a lot to who you become. Then the people you work with, the leadership in the organizations you work with, everything contributes to who you are, but your core values don't change. So I'm now not going to suddenly become a dishonest person simply because that's a trend. है ना? I'll still be the same person. It's just that I'm using my capabilities differently. मगर core values तो आपके वही रहते हैं.
लेकिन जहाँ वो बहुत मुश्किल नहीं है, जहाँ पे कल्चर इस तरह का चल रहा है, क्योंकि आपकी ज़्यादातर ग्रूमिंग और ग्रोथ और प्रिंसिपल्स एंड वैल्यूज हांगकांग में हुए, राइट? और वो बहुत ही वैल्यूज एंड प्रिंसिपल्स को वैसे उनका एक मतलब आपका कल्चर वैसे बहुत रिच है उनका उस तरह से.
हांगकांग का देखें, इट्स डिफरेंट. हांगकांग फोकसेस अ लॉट ऑन discipline, hard work, and also being on time, that kind of thing, right? Values or ethics उनके हमसे different नहीं है. अगर उनके parents believe in honesty and integrity and all of that, so do parents in this country, right? तो वो मुल्क के हिसाब से वो ethics and values नहीं change होते हैं. यहाँ जब मैं आई थी तो I remember early on I was speaking at a university in Islamabad, and one guy stood up and he said, "ये आप जो ethics, values, honesty, integrity की बात करती हैं, don't you think you're living in a world that is unreal? Because it doesn't work. If you are going to succeed, if you're going to grow into something, you need to let go of some of those values." मैंने कहा no. He said, "But you're in Pakistan. तो यहाँ पे आप जब तक थोड़ा बहुत अपने integrity को compromise नहीं करेंगे तो you cannot grow." मैंने कहा listen, I've managed to so far. I think people who are successful, and it depends to what degree they are successful. तो अब मैं कह सकती हूँ कि मैं successful हूँ, but do I measure success in terms of money? Do I measure success in terms of who I become or what impact I create? तो ये individual goals and missions होते हैं. ये आप नहीं define कर सकते. I can't tell you what success means to you. You have to define it, right? So success to me has never meant money. Yes, all of us need money. तो मुझे पैसे चाहिए होते हैं किस चीज़ के लिए? To live a comfortable life, to be able to eat interesting food, to be able to travel, to buy gadgets. इसके बाद मुझे पैसे किस लिए चाहिए? तो I feel that there's a limit to how much money I need in order to enjoy life and be who I am. Beyond that, what am I going to do with the money? Yes, थोड़ा बहुत आप charity में देते हैं, थोड़ा बहुत maybe to help grow an industry आप contribute कर सकते हैं. If you have money, you can do those kind of things. But उसके बाद आप क्या कर सकते हैं? तो आप जो success measure करते हैं, businesses need to focus sometimes कि आपको grow करना है अपना business, you want to employ more people, create more opportunities. So you need to grow monetarily as well as in terms of the work you're creating. मगर मुझे नहीं लगता कि if people who grow businesses need to compromise on their integrity either. I have met some of the best people in this country who have refused to compromise on their integrity and have yet grown.
Yeah.
तो ये मेरे ख्याल में this is a misconception
Yeah.
कि आपको करना पड़ता है. आप जब तक bribe नहीं करेंगे किसी को, आप ये नहीं करेंगे, तो ऐसा नहीं है. आप you stick to your guns and you'll see people will fold. The people who are trying आते थे, मतलब from various government departments, लोग आते थे. They try and scare you as well in the early days. But when they see that, you know, it doesn't move you and you say, ठीक है, it'll just make my journey a little harder.
Yeah.
And I'll have to struggle a little more. But eventually, you know, you'll get to the goal that you've set yourself.
Yeah.
So don't. I think अगर long term आपको अपनी growth के बारे में सोचना है तो और अपनी values को compromise नहीं करना है तो you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes
तो
sense.
मतलब कि
दूसरे को
सरकारी
hold
इदारे
करो.
में भी हम
नहीं, सरकारी
सकते
इदारे
हैं.
में भी
Exactly.
इदारों में आपने देखा है कि there are some really great people.
Yeah.
You can't define कि इस segment में या public sector या private sector या startup segment में लोग इस तरह के होते हैं. हर तरह के लोग होते हैं हर segment में. And you've seen it.
yeah we
I mean, you yourself, you know.
दोनों साइड या
दोनों
you're right
side,
actually
yes.
देखी हैं. जहान आप मैंने पढ़ी थी कहीं कि you know you're also part of the advisory board member World Bank में for gender diversity. तो वो रोल मुझे ज़रा थोड़ी सी क्लैरिटी भी चाहिए थी कि वो कहाँ पे आपकी यू नो लाइक एज एन एडवाइज़र व्हाट इज़ दैट रोल यू प्ले ओवर देयर, और फिर वो क्या इम्प्लीमेंटेशंस डू यू वांट के जो कम्युनिटी हम यहाँ पर चला रहे हैं उसमें भी कहीं ना कहीं वो रिफ्लेक्ट कर रही हो.
देखिए, वो तो वर्ल्ड बैंक ने अपना एक they have a framework कि हम ये करना चाहते हैं, this is what's going to make a difference to the countries in which we work. तो उन्होंने ये डिफाइन किया है कि पाकिस्तान में one of the issues is
Yes.
that diversity is a problem. So उन्होंने they've got a small group of people from Pakistan whom they've involved as advisors. तो मुख्तलिफ वो conversations शुरू करते हैं और कहते हैं अच्छा इसमें आप क्या समझते हैं, क्या problems हैं, इसमें हमें क्या करने की ज़रूरत है, because they have influence over government, over policy makers, and so वो आपकी advice लेके ये देख के कि इससे impact क्या होगा, they then take that advice to
Okay.
policy makers. That's all. I mean, we are as advisors, that's our role. हम वो उससे आगे कुछ कर नहीं सकते हैं. And I think if we serve that role well, हम अपने एक्सपीरियंस के थ्रू उनको बताते हैं कि देखें प्राइवेट सेक्टर में ये इश्यूज आ रहे हैं और डाइवर्सिटी इज नॉट जस्ट अबाउट जेंडर, इट्स ऑल्सो अबाउट पीपल विद डिसेबिलिटीज, इट्स अबाउट वेरियस थिंग्स. So they've involved different kinds of people who bring that knowledge to the table, that local knowledge, which many of them may not have. तो वो उसकी वजह से I think it allows them to look at things the way they are on the ground. बस ये होता है रोल और उससे ज़्यादा नहीं होता. It's sort of not any more important than that.
So कुछ recent उसके अंदर changes आए हैं क्या, कुछ चीज़ implement हुई है जहाँ?
कुछ चीज़ें हुई हैं जिसके बारे में उन्होंने बात की है. फिर वो जो स्टेट बैंक का बैंकिंग ऑन इक्वालिटी का जो डिस्कशन था उसमें भी they also had conversations with at the state bank level. You don't see, a lot of times you don't see ke, as a result of the conversations you've had or the advice you've given, actual kya cheezein hui hain which has changed. So you've got to look at it as a long-term discussion that's taking place, and things will change and maybe you won't see them changing, but eventually they will. So patience is something that you need to learn, which I've had to learn because I want things to happen.
Yeah.
So I think they're doing their job, and if anything that we say is helping, that's fine.
हम भी खुद मतलब कोशिश यही कर रहे होते थे, जैसे डिफरेंट कंपनीज के साथ या एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट्स के साथ हम जब बात करते हैं अबाउट जेंडर डाइवर्सिटी स्पेशली एंड ऑब्वियसली डिफरेंट उस पर भी, जब भी हमने ये वाली चीज़ करने की कोशिश भी की ना कि नहीं वी वांट मोर विमेन इंजीनियर्स, मे बी वी मोर वांट रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ विमेन समवेयर, या ये नहीं हो सकता कि इफ़ यूर आप अगर कोई डिसेबिलिटी आपको, आप बोल नहीं पा रहे सही तरह या आप फिजिकल आपको कोई चैलेंजेस हैं, यू कैन स्टिल वर्क हियर एंड यू कैन ऑल्सो बिकम अ लीड बिकॉज यू नीड टू शो पोटेंशियल. जब हम इन चीज़ों पे काम कर रहे होते हैं तो चैलेंजेस भी बहुत ज़्यादा आ रहे होते हैं क्योंकि वो मार्केट को अंडरस्टैंड करवाना कि ये देयर इज स्टिल अपॉर्चुनिटी, डू नॉट वरी अबाउट इट. उनसे एक्सेप्टेबिलिटी नहीं आती. वो कहते हैं ऐसे तो कभी भी नहीं हुआ. तो आप कौन सी बात कर रहे हैं हमसे? नहीं, आप लोगों का ये पीछे कोई एजेंडा ही होगा या कोई और मसला होगा. इस तरह कौन करता है हमारे साथ?
लोग हमेशा they are always critical or suspicious of new things. मगर वो trends change हो रहे हैं. आप अब देखें, I remember when I came into tech, there were no women in tech at that time. मगर अब आप देखें, there are women in leadership roles as well. Still not enough. There are a lot of women in mid-management and they're contributing. And then there are male champions who are also encouraging this trend.
Yeah.
And that's extremely important. It's not about us and them. It's about us together and what we can do. And I think leaders who understand कि diversity की वजह से हमारी business भी diverse होती है. We are also looking at customers who are diverse and this will benefit our business. ये global trend है. This is not just a Pakistani thing. पूरी दुनिया में आप देखें तो women leadership is low.
That's true.
But it's increasing now. तो ये we are fighting a battle which I think is a global battle.
Yeah.
और हम अक्सर पाकिस्तान को बुरा कहते हैं, but it's not a Pakistani problem.
Yeah.
It's a global problem और हम लोग सब मिल के कर सकते हैं. One of the things that I'm involved in is not started by me. It started by a man who said there are not enough women on the boards of companies.
Yes.
And that needs to change because until there are board members that are women, the companies will not hire more women in leadership roles and things will not change.
Yeah.
अच्छा, SECP की एक ruling है that at least public listed companies में there should be at least one woman on the board.
Yeah.
Excuse that companies have used is, oh, but there are not enough women who are capable or who are certified and हम कहाँ से ढूंढें और ये वो. So this guy, he started this initiative called Women for Boards. I'm also on the steering committee of that. So he's involved people that he knows are passionate about this. And what we've done is we've produced a directory of women who are capable, who are certified, and we've published it. Saying, okay, you're looking for women to join boards, here they are. So that excuse is now off the table, कि नहीं मिल रही हैं. है ना? और फिर different experience वाले, HR में भी हैं, tech में भी हैं, marketing में भी हैं. कौन सी चाहिए आपको? And then a second directory has been published. So it's good that people are saying, no, we're not going to accept these excuses. उसमें मुशर्रफ आई, who used to be chairperson of Unilever, she's a strong person in this group, who also advises us. Many of us don't have that level of experience at top leadership of big companies. तो वो भी बताती हैं कि किस तरह टैकल करना है, क्या करना है. We've got, male members, champions. Zafar Ahmed Khan हैं जो PTCL में भी थे, Engro में भी थे. He's one of the people on the steering committee. So it's not a men versus women committee. It's a committee that's looking at the problem collaboratively. So I think these kind of initiatives you're beginning to see that are changing the landscape of how things are.
सो बैक इन द डे, मतलब अब इस बात तो काफ़ी देर हो गई हुई है. इसी तरह हमारी बातचीत चल रही थी. एक मर्द हजरात थे वो, तो जब ये वाली बात कर रहे थे कि लीडरशिप रोल्स पे वुमेन की रिप्रेजेंटेशन होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि उनको भी पता होता है कि क्या क्या चैलेंजेस औरतें जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में काम करी उनके होंगे, और दे ऑल्सो ऐड अ डिफरेंट फ्लेवर इन द मीटिंग्स एज वेल. तो उन्होंने कहा, सबीन, अगर ऐसा करना शुरू कर दिया तो उनको तो मैटरनिटी लीव देनी पड़ेगी, उनकी तो शादी के बड़े मसले हो जाते हैं. तो ऐसी मतलब तो फिर उनको मैं क्यों रखूं, ये तो बड़ा काम है.
अच्छा, मजे की बात ये है, कभी रिसेंटली ना देयर वाज दिस बिल पास्ड, आई बिलीव इन द सेनेट, आई डोंट नो इफ इट हैज बिकम अ लॉ येट और नॉट, बट के ना मैटरनिटी को एक्सटेंड करें 6 months तक पेड.
बिल्कुल.
आई वाज लाइक, इफ दिस हैपेंस, इवन दो इट्स अ गुड थिंग, but this is only going to make companies think twice before hiring a woman, क्योंकि cost attached है. और यूजुअली जब हम इस तरह की मैटरनिटी लीव्स अक्रॉस द ग्लोब देखते हैं ना, दे आर सपोर्टेड बाय गवर्नमेंट्स. सो लाइक द गवर्नमेंट वुड पे द कंपनी और पे द पर्सन ड्यूरिंग दैट मैटरनिटी वाला पीरियड. कंपनीज यूजुअली बहुत कम ऐसी होती हैं कि वो 6 महीने आपको पेड मैटरनिटी देंगी.
पता है, I don't know. I think men who have these objections are also part of families. They have their own families. They should look at it holistically. कि अगर मेरे बच्चा होने वाला है या बच्ची होने वाली है, तो wouldn't I want my wife to have this facility. अब तो parental leave भी दो insist
Yes.
करने लगे हैं लोग कि भाई the father should also be involved in the early days of bringing up the
Yes,
child
yes.
or contributing towards those early challenges that a woman is facing. तो मेरे ख्याल में these companies that are looking at this holistically, they understand कि if you're a valuable employee, आपको 6 महीने की leave देने का कोई हर्ज नहीं है, because that means that you will then be more committed to the organization when you come back. So I don't know, matlab it depends on individuals who are looking at things very, very differently. I'm going through this. One of my senior people, she's going to be going on maternity leave, and she's been very stressed कि क्या होगा क्या नहीं होगा. मैंने कहा सब ठीक हो जाएगा. You know, this is something that you should be enjoying, not stressing over, right? And we have a small team, so it's even more challenging. But I said, do you have faith in the people who work with you? She said, yes. I said, then what's the stress about? Or whenever you're ready and you want to start working remotely a little bit, just to be back in this, midst of things, you're welcome to do that. But, you will need that time. You know that you will. This is not her first child. So she knows what she has to go through. So mere khayal mein, these are things that are part of life. Isi tarah agar if your parents are ill or going through very serious health issues, men may also want to take leave to address those challenges. तो सोचना चाहिए ना, it's not just about maternity. It's about other things. It's about life.
Yes. Agreed.
तो ये सोचना मेरे ख्याल में बहुत ज़रूरी है. I know sometimes people say, हाँ ये बहुत theoretical है, but look at, the business. You can't look at the business in isolation. The business is about people.
Yeah.
And those people are contributing to the growth of your business. If you want to just employ all men, you also need to then guarantee that the men don't have families. किसी के बच्चे को कभी कुछ नहीं होगा, बीवी को कुछ नहीं होगा, parents को कुछ नहीं होगा, and they will never skip a day in the life of that business, right? So this is ridiculous. I feel that it's the wrong way to approach the subject. Agreed. So any person who has a business and who wants to grow it and grow it beyond a certain size needs to look at this holistically.
Agreed. जहान आप जो है ना, आई थिंक टिकटॉक की एडवाइजरी मेंबर भी हैं, तो सो बेसिकली मैं ये कह सकती हूँ ना कि यू हैव द पावर टू कंट्रोल द कंटेंट एटलीस्ट. नहीं अच्छा, ओके.
TikTok is a very large organization globally. So I am on the safety and content advisory board. Okay. And what that means is that they are constantly trying to assure that because TikTok and its users are growing phenomenally every day, every hour, that they moderate the content, they make sure they put in the tools that are required to make sure that the content is not used, the platform is not misused, the content is not the kind of content that's going to hurt, especially because many of their users are young people, are children. So they need advice from people who are in different countries, simply because the culture, the acceptance of various things is very different in each of those countries. So it's a small council for APAC.
Okay.
But each of us bring different things to the table. तो अगर कोई इंडोनेशिया से represent कर रहा है या इंडिया से, खैर इंडिया में तो बैंड है, इंडिया से नहीं, although we did have someone, but नेपाल से है, श्रीलंका से है, या US से, ऑस्ट्रेलिया, न्यूजीलैंड से हैं, तो each of those markets is very different. उनके यहाँ क्या कल्चरली एक्सेप्टेबल है, क्या रेगुलेशन के थ्रू एक्सेप्टेबल है, ये सब जो एक्सपर्टीज है we bring to the discussions that take place. Now, how much of it is accepted is something that we have asked कि आप हमें बताएं कि हमसे एडवाइस तो आपने ले ली है, अब इसको आप इम्प्लीमेंट कितना करेंगे. We need to know so that we know if we're wasting our time or not. तो वो भी they're very transparent about that. Of course, there is no way that we can discuss what is being discussed during the council meetings. All these council meetings start with total confidentiality because we're all being very transparent. So I think it's useful because we're protecting the kids who are using the platform. And now, of course, adults are also using the platform, and then some are misusing the platform.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure that those safeguards are built in.
Yeah.
And that's one of the roles that I am playing. And I'm really excited about it. And this time, abhi inhone Mexico City mein, they held an advisory council meeting where all the advisory councils from all over the world met in one place. So this was the first opportunity we had to meet the people from South America or from the US or Canada and all of Europe. And we understood through the conversations ke how are we all similar and how are we all different, and what are the challenges that each of the countries is facing in terms of regulatory pressure, in terms of political pressure, in terms of users ko protect karne ka pressure. So it was really interesting, and it keeps me very excited because somehow you are contributing to the growth of a platform and yet protecting the users who are on it. So I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
So India
That's
में तो
nice.
ban कर दिया हुआ है ना?
Ban kar diya. वो तो that's a political thing. Na? It's got nothing to do with they think the platform is not useful. It's because it's a Chinese company.
Yeah.
Do you
US में
have-
भी दरम्यान में हुआ था. I
US में भी बातचीत हो रही है. The thing is, it's a company is no longer limited to its geography.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a global platform now. So you
Mhm.
cannot say कि it's a Chinese company or it's वो benefit कर जाएंगे तो हम इसलिए नहीं करें. I think we are much more open than a lot of places. But
Yeah.
हमारे भी regulators कभी-कभी, I mean, TikTok has been banned in this country several times
Yeah.
for various reasons.
Yeah.
तो you need to pay attention कि regulators क्या कह रहे हैं. Policy makers से conversations, they keep having those conversations. That's not my role.
Okay.
उनके जो पॉलिसी के लोग हैं वो हमारी गवर्नमेंट से, हमारे यहाँ पॉलिसी मेकर्स से बात करते रहते हैं. दे नीड टू बी केयरफुल ऑफ ईच ऑफ द कंट्रीज. कल्चरल पर्सपेक्टिव भी दे नीड टू लुक एट, बट एट द सेम टाइम दे ऑल्सो नीड टू बी हैविंग ओपन कॉन्वर्सेशंस सो दैट इफ देयर आर मिसकंसेप्शन, जैसे many of the countries they feel के educational value कोई नहीं है ऐसे प्लेटफॉर्म पे. That's not true.
Yeah.
It's being used for a lot of things.
Yeah.
So ये सब चीजें, it's total education and awareness that you need to create.
So since we're talking about roles, similar to the TikTok advisory role, जैसे आप कह रही थी कि we usually question them कि जो हम advice दे रहे हैं, is that being implemented? You were also part of the Prime Minister's task force. So how did that go? उसमें भी ये scene होता है, do you guys sit together, talk about ideas, कुछ implement होते हैं, execution होती है, या is it more so just like?
So unfortunately there are not enough meetings. तो अगर आपके साल में 2 मीटिंग हो रही हैं तो, and sometimes some of us are unable to fly to Islamabad for these meetings because time factor भी होता है, expense factor भी होता है, because we're paying our own way. The government does not fund any of these things. तो खैर, most of us can afford to fly to Islamabad and stay at overnight or whatever. मगर उसमें ये होता है कि it's a small team. It's like I think 15-16 people who comprise this task force. Advice देते हैं, things that we think are important.
Yeah.
उसमें से 1-2 चीजें implement भी हो जाती हैं. Not all of them get implemented. But we feel that this is a process. और हम constantly जब कहते रहेंगे तो at some time changes will more than likely happen.
Yeah.
तो थोड़े changes हुए हैं, which is great. Some pieces of advice are not always accepted. Maybe because they're not in line with the policies that they themselves want to implement. मगर हाँ, it's good to be continuing the conversation, and it's good that they ask us for advice. So I've been on the task force when Imran Khan was Prime Minister, and I'm also on the task force now that Shehbaz Sharif is the Prime Minister. So I feel that perhaps they're not looking at कि ये कौन सी पार्टी को support करती हैं. मैं किसी पार्टी को, I'm very apolitical. I support anyone who's doing something that will benefit the country. So the advice is always focused on कि tech, how should tech be used to contribute to the growth of this country and its people. And I think most of the people on that task force think the same way, which is great because then we learn from each other as well. So it's interesting. Magar, I wish there were more consistent meetings, and I wish they listened to more pieces of advice, and not just listened, but actually implemented many of those things that we've suggested. Hoga, slowly.
Inshallah. Hope for the
Again,
best.
patience is a requirement.
100%, 100%.
चले ये तो वो एडवाइजरी वाले सीन है ना which are like external आप कह लें एक किस्म के, but heading nest आयो एक तो I really want to know what you really called the big bird.
Yes,
And
I'm
what's
still
this-
called the big
that
bird.
is the most adorable thing, honestly. ऊपर से nest and then the big bird, तो like have you helped all your birdlings like learn how to fly?
Nestlings, not
Nestlings.
birdlings.
But like are they all in their own have they built their own nests?
Some of them have actually,
Yeah.
interestingly. So I ran the nest for six and a half years, I think.
Yeah.
And it was just so enjoyable. It was hard work. I worked 18-hour days.
Yeah.
But the fact that there was a community and there were people who were benefiting from it, mostly young people, and who were coming together. So it's not always learning from me or learning from some of the mentors who were part of the nest. And there were many.
Yeah.
Log bahut excited the. When we started the nest, many people from the community came to us and said, how can we help?
Yeah.
So these are people who were experienced, who had started companies, and they were excited by the fact that hum youngsters ko empower karenge, unko advice denge. Of course, youngsters also don't have to take your advice, right? They might think you're giving very stupid advice, and they have a right to that opinion as well sometimes. As long as they listen and are respectful, they go ahead and do what they think is right.
Yeah.
But that community, nest band ho gaya, but that community still exists. And they have gone on. So many of them started businesses that failed. And this happens globally.
Yeah.
हमारे यहाँ इसकी understanding नहीं है, अरे वो startup हुआ था और वो fail हो गया, बंद हो गया. That's a part of what a startup is. And 90% of startups globally fail.
Yeah.
Or more sometimes.
आपने खुद ही वैसे एक हमारा सवाल जो होना था उसको पहले ही आंसर कर दिया कि इट्स नॉट जस्ट अ पाकिस्तान प्रॉब्लम, इट्स अ स्टार्टअप, नॉट एग्जैक्टली अ प्रॉब्लम इवन, कि स्टार्टअप जब शुरू होते हैं तो दे फेल, दैट्स पार्ट ऑफ द लर्निंग प्रोसेस. हाउ एवर इन पाकिस्तान, स्पेशली इफ यू गो टू इन्वेस्टर्स, दे आर सो स्केयर्ड. उनके जो फियर्स अटैच होते हैं ना इन्वेस्टमेंट से, दे आर लाइक यार दिस इज गोइंग टू फेल. और ऑब्वियसली देयर आर सो मेनी एग्जाम्पल्स जिनको वो कोट करके ही बात कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि बहुत हैंडफुल स्टार्टअप्स होते हैं जो they actually end up being successful. और अगर हम अपनी पर्सनल भी बात करें, like if I talk about my parents, whenever they have a lot of money, they would never invest in a business. They'd be like, यार plot खरीद लो, that's a safe investment. So how do you convince investors कि यार ये जो fears है ना, like put them aside?
But
Because
you're absolutely right.
yeah.
But I think you can correct me. मुझे लगता है कि बिजनेस से ज़्यादा जिसका विजन है ना, जिसने उसको ड्राइव करना है, हम बेसिकली उसमें इन्वेस्टमेंट कर रहे होते हैं. क्योंकि अगर तो वो शख्स मेरे लिए इम्पोर्टेंट है, बिकॉज मुझे ये पता चलेगा कि उसने चलाना है ना आगे. अगर उस पर मेरा ट्रस्ट है तो आई थिंक आइडिया कहीं ना कहीं वो पिवट भी करेगा ना, तो आई वुड नो कि मैंने इस पर इन्वेस्ट किया तो ये कुछ ना कुछ निकाल लेगा.
Actually, it is the team that's important.
Yeah.
The thing is, the people who are saying कि हम नहीं इन्वेस्ट करेंगे because हमें पता है कि ये फेल हो जाएंगे, they're not investors.
True.
They are playing at being investors. Because real investors know
Yeah.
कि अगर वो 10 businesses में इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं तो एक शायद succeed करे. तो they go in with their eyes wide open.
Yeah.
तो मुझे लगता है कि हमारे यहाँ real investors की जरूरत है.
Agreed.
Who are willing to take this risk.
Yeah.
पेरेंट्स और फैमिली से आप पैसे ना लें तो बेहतर है.
वो कहते हैं ना पहली फंडिंग जो है ना, तो like the first
हाँ,
one is
friends,
friends and
family
family, and then
and
it's
fools.
like and fools.
Which is fine. Angel investment के हद तक ठीक है.
Yeah.
But serious amount of money investors इसलिए लगाते हैं कि उनको पता है कि it's a gamble.
Yeah.
It's a risk. And that's why it's known as risk capital,
I
right?
see.
So, but they will get that one big hit which will make up for all the ones that they have lost, right?
That's
So
true.
that's something that investors in this country need to understand. There are some who do, but most of them who are playing the guise of being investors and are not, they don't. तो वो इस तरह के lectures देते हैं.
Yeah.
But the only way to grow an industry, first of all, investment is not always necessary. तो जैसे ही कोई एक आइडिया लेके आता है ना, तो अक्सर आई हियर द किड्स सेइंग आई वाजंट एबल टू डू एनीथिंग विद इट बिकॉज आई डिडंट गेट इन्वेस्टमेंट। आई सेड मगर उसको कहाँ तक ले गए? आइडिया था ना दिमाग में, डिड यू इवन ट्राई एंड see if it works? Did you talk to 100 people to find out कि अगर आपने वो प्रोडक्ट बनाया तो वो खरीदेंगे, और खरीदेंगे तो कितने पैसे का खरीदेंगे? Did you do your research? Did you even make a minimum viable product? पैसे, उसके लिए पैसों की जरूरत necessarily नहीं होती, तो take it to a level, and that's when anyone who is a serious investor will look at it and say, अच्छा, he's gone or she's gone through this process and this is what they've learned and this is where they think it will go. Then I should risk putting money in it, right? Magar ye process follow karna zaruri hai. Don't think that you always need money. I met a guy yesterday who's built his entire business without raising any capital.
Okay, nice.
That is so cool. Like, I want to be that guy.
He said, I generated revenue and then I put that money back into my company, and I know it's difficult.
Of course.
And sometimes, and maybe you don't look at such companies as startups, but his is. So you can't, there's no formula. Sometimes you will need angel capital early on, and sometimes you won't need money for a longer time after that. As long as you can hold out, it's better to raise money when you're good and ready, because then an investor will give you better value.
Yeah.
They will give you capital at much higher values than they would otherwise, because they can see the path that you are taking. तो बेहतर यही होता है. तो ये स्टार्टअप्स को अभी फाउंडर्स को समझ में नहीं आया है. We are all learning. I think all of us are looking at this segment and learning every day कि क्या करना चाहिए, क्या नहीं करना चाहिए. तो sometimes founders tell us something that makes much more sense than what we know. अभी मैंने जैसे Katalyst Labs शुरू किया है. It's a startup. तो बहुत सी एडवाइस जो मैं देती थी फाउंडर्स को, मैंने कहा अब पता चलेगा कि whether it makes sense, whether that advice actually works, and it has. But it was possible that it didn't. Maybe वो सब theoretical होती और मैं जब apply करती तो it wouldn't work. So I think it's interesting times when you are able to test your own theories to see if they will work.
Nice.
जहाँ लेकिन जब आपका एक पहला, जैसे आपने कहा ना कि तीसरा उसका सक्सेसफुल हुआ स्टार्टअप, 2 फेल के बाद मैं कहती हूँ बहुत हिम्मत चाहिए तीसरे में जान मारने के लिए, बिकॉज वो आपकी सोशल, मेंटल, आपकी सारी चीज़ें वेलबींग जो है ना अफेक्ट होती हैं इन चीज़ों से. आप क्योंकि जो भी कोई स्टार्टअप है या प्रोडक्ट है या सर्विस कुछ भी आप करें, इट्स लाइक योर बेबी, यू नो, लाइक मैंने वो उसको बनाया है, उसको ग्रो करवाना है, सब कुछ करना है, एंड व्हेन इट फेल्स द अमाउंट ऑफ इमोशनल टोल यू हैव और सारा कुछ, ये बहुत मुश्किल है. उस तरह के लोग आपके पास दोबारा भी आ गए कि नहीं, जहाँ मुझे बताएं कि मैंने अब फंडिंग लेकर आनी, ये मेरा आइडिया है, यहाँ तक मैंने रेवेन्यू जनरेट किया है, वहाँ से उसकी जर्नी एक और स्टार्ट हो जाती है दोबारा से. और वो मोटिवेशन लेवल उनके अंदर भी रखना, परसिस्टेंट रहो, कोई नहीं हम इन चीज़ों को देख रहे होते, ये बहुत मुश्किल काम है.
आसान तो कभी किसी ने नहीं कहा था कि होगा. और एनीथिंग वर्थ डूइंग, इट्स अ स्ट्रगल. और इमोशनल उस पे होते हैं, बैकलैश सोसाइटी की भी होती है. लोग भी मजाक उड़ाते हैं, अरे तुमने तो कहा था एक स्टार्टअप शुरू कर रहे हो, हम तो देखो फला XYZ कंपनी में अब तो हम मिड मैनेजमेंट में पहुंच गए, तुम अभी तक स्टार्टअप ही का खेल खेल रहे हो, कहीं कुछ नहीं हुआ. द थिंग इज, पीपल हु स्टार्ट देयर ओन कंपनीज are a different type of person. They know what they're getting into. They're strong, and there are weak periods when they need people around them to be there to hold their hand and say it'll be okay. Hota hai. And that's why that society is important, that community is important, because वो आके रोते भी हैं, बैठते हैं और कहते हैं कि दिल टूट गया. You know, it's true, you're quite right. और दिल वाकई टूट जाता है because उसमें बहुत मेहनत लगाई होती है.
100%.
But they go into it knowing that that's a possibility. फिर भी दुखता है. मगर ये है कि you know, they learn from that. If you have co-founders, it helps. If you have mentors who are holding your hand, who are listening to you, sometimes they come in at the nest. Some of them would come in the evening and just sit there and talk. कि आपसे एडवाइस चाहिए. Actually एडवाइस नहीं चाहिए उनको. They need to say what's in their heart, and they need somebody who will listen and not judge them. So those kind of people, that enabling environment is very important. And then it's also important to have people who will tell them the truth. तो हमारे कम्युनिटी जो है उसमें मेंटोर्स और एडवाइजर्स ऐसे अब ग्रो होने शुरू हो गए हैं जो सच बोलते हैं, कहते हैं देखो ये तुम जो कर रहे हो ना, ओके it's an interesting idea, but have you looked at this and this? फाउंडर को अच्छा नहीं लगता है, कहता है अरे क्या मतलब मैंने सब सोचा हुआ है. But the thing is they need to hear the truth as well. They need that guidance. तो मेरे ख्याल में we are lucky that there are people within our communities who are now willing to do that. Some of them risk early stage funding as well, but more than that, they sit down, they give up their time, they give that guidance that is necessary. ये होगा, दिल तो टूटेगा, मगर फिर आगे the fruit that you know that you might get when you're running your third startup, when you see that, then it's all worth it. मगर जरूरी नहीं होता है, ये भी नहीं जरूरी है कि आपका थर्ड स्टार्टअप वाकई सक्सेसफुल. एग्रीड,
बिल्कुल ऐसे ही है. लेकिन वो आपके पोर्टफोलियो को इम्पैक्ट नहीं कर रहा है इन टर्म्स ऑफ कि वीसी जब देख रहा है कि यार इसके तो 2 पहले फेल हो गए थे.
अरे वीसी जो असल वीसी होता है ना, वो जब ये देखता है तो वो कहता है दिस पर्सन इज वर्थ बेटिंग ऑन. ओके बिकॉज़ दे हैव ऑलरेडी बीन थ्रू 1 or 2 फेलियर्स एंड दे मस्ट हैव लर्नड फ्रॉम दोस फेलियर्स. तो जो असल वीसी होता है ना, वो ये देख के वो आपको ये जज नहीं कर रहा होता है कि आपके में कैपेबिलिटी नहीं है, वो ये जज कर रहा होता है कि अच्छा they were able to get back up and do it again.
असल वीसी लेकिन पॉइंट ये.
हाँ, असल वीसी.
अच्छा, तो ये मेंटोर के साथ साथ you're also acting like a startup therapist for them essentially.
This is
like,
a good
and sometimes they are acting as therapists for me. So it's a
the
give and
therapist
take.
also needs a therapist,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. अभी हम बात कर रहे थे उस दिन, किसी ने कहा I have a fear of flying. When I get on a plane, I'm extremely nervous. लोग कहते हैं कैसे, you fly so much, you travel so much. मैंने कहा बस है. And I've tried to explain to myself, I've studied turbulence, कि इसका क्या मतलब होता है, but this is a fear. As a human being, you can have. मैंने कहा flying की भी therapists होने चाहिए, जिनके पास आप जा सकें, जो आपको बताएं, try and deal with that anxiety and fear that you have. तो हर चीज में होता है fear.
वो आपको exposure therapy देंगे फिर.
Therapy is not a bad word.
Yeah, no,
हमारे यहाँ समझते नहीं है.
नहीं, बिल्कुल भी नहीं. I think that's something
word.
that everybody needs. तो मेरे ख्याल में वो ज़रूरी है, और जिस तरह की दुनिया में हम इस वक्त रह रहे हैं ना, उसमें तो बहुत ही ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है.
और मेंटल प्रेशर बहुत है सोसाइटी में इस वक्त, whether it's due to the economy, whether it's due to the struggles that you have, all the family pressures, everything. So I think if you don't need therapy, you must be weird.
Yeah.
And that therapy doesn't need to be from a psychologist necessarily. It could be from a friend, it could be from a mentor, it could be from your peers. So let's not sort of compartmentalize therapy either. तो इस तरह की चीजें मेरे ख्याल में हम लोगों को सोचनी पड़ेंगी, instead of judging people when they say, oh, I am going to my therapist, or I think I need some psychological help. Everybody needs it at some stage of their.
Now that you're running Katalyst Labs, अब वो एक incubation center नहीं है, it's an accelerator, right? Do you think वहाँ पे आपकी emotional attachment startup से थोड़ी ज़्यादा हो जाती है? या
मेरी emotional attachment हमेशा सबसे हो जाती है. It doesn't matter whether it's an incubated startup, an accelerated startup, or anybody that I meet, that I have any sort of connection with. Emotions मेरे कभी अलग नहीं होते हैं. As a human being, you are part of who you are is your emotions, right? तो incubated startups जो थे उनके साथ मेरी ज़्यादा attachment थी, because they were like babies starting and for the first time, and you afraid that they might trip and all of that. जो accelerated startups होते हैं वो एक process पहले ही clear कर and it's not necessary that those startups were with me when they were being incubated. They might have been incubated somewhere else, or they might not have been incubated at all. They might have just got through that process themselves. तो acceleration में जब आते हैं तो उनके issues different होते हैं, उनके needs different होती हैं. And if we are able to help them, and it's not just me. Remember, I have a team of people. Also, we have a whole range of mentors तो हमारा काम ये होता है कि हम उनको कनेक्ट भी करें, उनको तैयार भी करें, सो दे डोंट वेस्ट अ मेंटर्स टाइम. उनको पिचेस फॉर इन्वेस्टमेंट उसकी भी तैयारी करवाएं, उनको मार्केट असेसमेंट की भी तैयारी कराएं, एंड मेक श्योर दैट दे आर रेडी. The work is something they will have to do themselves. कोई और कर नहीं सकता उनके लिए. तो it's interesting. It's a different kind of journey, but I'm enjoying it. But what Katalyst Labs does is more than that. And the part that I'm enjoying a lot is the women leadership program that we run. And that is something that I'm very passionate about. Because इस मुल्क में, as we discussed earlier, women business leaders काफी नहीं हैं. And this country needs it. So many women who are at management roles have always been told that that's where they belong. We are trying to convince them. एक तो उनकी confidence build करना, उनकी capacity build करना, any gaps that exist उसको fix करना, so that they are trained in those areas, and then helping them create a business network. Women in this country don't have a business network.
I feel this is so important.
So that's what we are tackling, and that's what I feel is going to contribute to the way that the business sector changes.
तो ये मुझ जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल मुझे अगर 8-9 साल हो गए काम करते हुए इंडस्ट्री में, मिड मैनेजमेंट लेवल पे आप आ रहे होते हो. मेरा ऑब्वियसली बिजनेस नहीं है, लेकिन मैं एक लेवल पे ज़रूर हूँ जहाँ पे आई वांट टू मे बी बिकम अ लीडर और ग्रो. सो मैं भी आपके पास क्या हेल्प के लिए आ सकती हूँ?
Most of the women are, so some of them are entrepreneurs, but most of them are professionals who are working within companies and want to grow within those companies.
That is so nice.
So that's important. It's not just entrepreneurs that you need to tag. And they're not all in tech companies either. Some of them are in large multinationals and they have not been growing. Some of them are in smaller startups and they've not been growing. So unko ye capability dena, making sure ke training, leadership training dena, and for that it's not necessary that I provide that training. We bring in trainers as well and say कि आप इनके लिए ये 3 दिन की training run करें. And much of it has been virtual because we're trying to address the needs of the entire country and not just Karachi where I'm based. So and because of COVID, that has become an acceptable way of training as well. तो कुछ on-site training होती है और कुछ remote training होती है. And then we also bring in role models, women who've been there, who've done that, and how they got to where they are, and whether they faced the same challenges that these women are facing. So जैसे हम Dr. Shamshad Akhtar came and spoke to the women, Maheen Rahman came and spoke to the women, Musharraf Hai spoke to them, Seema Kamil, who's the deputy governor of the state bank, she talked to them, and हमारी जो हैं I'm forgetting the name. Anyway, so we have several women who have come to speak to them to talk about their challenges और किस तरह उन्होंने वो tackle किया, and where they are now in their journey, and whether those challenges grow with them as they grow in the capacity of where they are. So उसकी वजह से इनको ये पता चलता है कि अच्छा, it's not just us, there are other women who faced it. Then we bring in male champions जो बताते हैं कि हमने किस तरह increase किए numbers of women in our organization, and how we have, it's been an advantage having women at director level positions, और हमने किस तरह वो mentality within our workforce change किया कि women cannot do it. तो ये सब चीज़ें बहुत ज़रूरी होती हैं. तो we're trying to do that and help them build that network as well at the same time. And it's small cohorts of 25 to 30 women at a time, but it's working. We are starting to see that impact. And I think we need to scale up that operation much more.
I think in networking wali cheez is something that us women can relate to itna zyada, because once we're done with work, the expectation usually is you're going to go home, spend time with your family, या कोई आपने घर के काम करने हैं तो वो you need to wrap up. Unlike men who have the ability to go out for dinners या मतलब कुछ like sports वो enjoy करते होंगे तो वो खेलने चले जाएंगे.
मैं सीख रही हूँ आजकल.
Golf is like ये तो वो western.
I have a feeling that I've missed out by not being a golfer.
That is so true, because western वो white man वाली चीज जो होती है ना कि like any successful white man essentially plays golf.
No, now it's filtered into Pakistan as well.
It's a good thing. So now successful Pakistani.
I don't know if it's a good thing or not because it's still an elite sport.
Yes,
It is.
Not
it is.
everyone can
Agreed.
afford it.
हाँ तो उसमें ना बल्कि
मुश्किल
फिर
है।
जेंडर के साथ ये वाली चीज भी आ जाती है कि maybe you're not that person at this point in your life where you have the luxury to be able to go play golf. It doesn't just have to be women. Even men out there might not have that luxury. So वहाँ पे आके ना ये things like these कि like you have a network cohort system में आप काम कर रहे हो is becomes your like I would say एक आपके लिए वो बन जाता है anchor. You know you can
बिल्कुल.
get support from there.
Yeah.
So this I feel is
And that
Like-
you're not alone in
हाँ,
this.
Yes.
बिल्कुल और वहाँ पे लाइक हम अभी थेरेपी की बात कर रहे थे एक किस्म की कि यू कैन एक्चुअली गो टॉक टू दोस पीपल बिकॉज यू नो कि यार दे हैव बीन थ्रू सिमिलर एक्सपीरियंसेस मेरी बातों ने समझ आएगी
हाँ, बिल्कुल.
सो आई थिंक दिस इज ऑनेस्टली एज अ वुमन आई फील सो हैप्पी कि दिस इज समथिंग दैट हैज स्टार्टेड
So,
मैं तो खुद सोच रही थी कि ये बस मैं
Let's get
अलग
into
से ना
this.
इसके
एक
ऊपर
सेपरेट
काम
कॉन्वर्सेशन
करेंगे।
करते हैं
हाँ, बिल्कुल. नहीं, we should.
या
I think all of us needs to contribute to this, and I think the more men we can get involved
Yes.
in making this happen, the better it will be.
आजकल तो बहुत अंडरस्टैंडिंग है आजकल तो वो चाहते हैं कि आपको वैसे भी जब दिखाना होता है कि आई एम हेयर टू सपोर्ट एवरीवन रिगार्डलेस ऑफ योर जेंडर तो आजकल के आई थिंक जो मेल फिगर्स हैं वो वैसे भी काफ़ी उस लिहाज से इन्फ्लुएंशियल भी हैं और वो हेल्प भी कर रहे हैं आई थिंक वुमेन को जहाँ पे बाज़ मुझे कभी कभी फील होता है जहाँ पे शायद औरत को इतना सपोर्ट नहीं करती वो बंदा आके समझ लेता है कि नहीं अंडरस्टैंड
Sometimes the only help they can give is to stay out of the way while doing. It's like when we used to go to different countries and we used to say, what is your government doing to help your IT sector to grow? And they used to say, they're staying out of the way.
यस
लव दैट
जहान वो ना आजकल आपको पता होगा कि AI AGI इनके ऊपर बातें चल रही हैं चैट GPT हर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में पेनिट्रेट कर गया हुआ है और आपकी असल कोर बैकग्राउंड वैसे भी कंटेंट एंड कम्युनिकेशन एंड राइटिंग एंड एवरीथिंग और ये आजकल जो हम देख रहे होते हैं क्योंकि एक डिबेट है या कंटेंट राइटर्स कंटेंट जनरेशन इट्स गोइंग टू बी अल्टीमेटली रिप्लेस्ड क्योंकि लोग आजकल ईमेल्स तो सब चैट GPT निकालता है दैट आई कैन बेट और ये इसमें ना अब वो आहिस्ता आहिस्ता लोग भी इनसिक्योर कहीं ना कहीं हो रहे होते हैं सो एवरीवन इज एक्चुअली आइदर लुकिंग टू स्विच और अप स्किल इन अ वे जहाँ पे दे फील कि हम कुछ और अरसा भी इस मार्केट में रह सकें आपने रिसेंटली ये देखा होगा कि इसने इम्पैक्ट कहीं ना कहीं क्रिएट किया है और अब तो बहुत सारे स्टार्टअप्स भी AI रिलेटेड कामों पे जा रहे हैं उन चीज़ों पे लेकर आ रहे हैं सो डू यू थिंक कि हम उस जिस डायरेक्शन में हम जाना शुरू हो गए वाकई में इट इज़ गोइंग टू क्रिएट सम प्रॉब्लम्स एज वेल वेयर इज इट क्रिएटिंग अपॉर्चुनिटीज
I think it will create more opportunities. So a lot of the work that you used to do that was very basic and boring
Yeah.
can be automated. So why are we resisting that? We need to upskill ourselves. We need to go into more interesting directions. Things that technology cannot do it on its own. That needs people and brains and things like that. So I think it will give us that opportunity to explore other more interesting areas. So we should never be scared of technology, doing things that we may not want to do, that we may be stuck with. So I don't think chat GPT or any new technology will take over from what the human brain is capable of. I think we should learn how to use it, how to tap it. So a lot of people are now letting chat GPT and the likes of chat GPT do some of the very basic boring stuff and then taking that and then growing it into something much more. तो
Because-
मेरे ख्याल में AI और किसी से भी आपको डरना नहीं चाहिए.
ठीक है
आपकी सारी कॉन्वर्सेशन है ना एक आपकी पर्सनालिटी का तो मेरे ख्याल में सबको आइडिया भी है यूर अ वेरी पॉजिटिव पर्सन जैन यूर अ वेरी पॉजिटिव पर्सन I understand the nature of your work also requires you to be that positive person and give that energy. लेकिन हर वक्त नहीं होती है यार आपका फेल हो गया कोई मसला नहीं है तुम्हें ये टेंशन है इसको भी हल निकल आएगा हाँ इस तरह से होता है लेकिन क्या है इसमें इसको ऐसे हम डील कर लेंगे ये कहीं से आप पढ़ती हैं या कहीं से एम्बेड होकर आया ये क्योंकि मैं हर वक्त पॉजिटिव नहीं रह सकती
You were beginning to sound like this psychologist that I went to see. मेरे सर में बहुत दर्द रहने लगा था तो I went to a neurologist and he said कि physically तो there's nothing wrong with you तो I'm going to send you to a psychologist. This is many years ago. तो मुझे साइकोलॉजिस्ट के पास भेजा, उन्होंने मुझसे बातें की, बहुत सी नेगेटिव चीजें शी थ्रू एट मी एंड आई जस्ट लाफ्ड एंड आई शी सेड कोई तो है खराबी आप, how can you be so positive? There's something wrong with people who cannot look at everything positively. मैंने कहा यार, I've never heard this, इसमें खराबी क्या है मतलब? And it's not that I'm never depressed or that I'm never sort of upset about things, but I try and restrict it to like 1 or 2 minute segments. रो लो, गुस्सा कर लो, कुछ करना है, but उसके बाद go back. This is life. So I think I don't like to waste my time on negativity because it leads to nothing. But we're all humans. So all of us go through depression. And I went through a period where I was very, very depressed. Especially after my mother died, I was really in a very bad place. But I filled that with something constructive. Something that would keep my focus so that I wouldn't think of it. A lot of work that would exhaust me so that I would just go home and then crash totally. So you learn to deal with that. But I think the first thing is to look at everything in as much of a positive sense as possible without being unrealistic. So I'm unrealistic nahi hu. I'm a realist, but I think let's see, okay, this is happening. How can we deal with this and then move on and take a positive direction? So I know, I mean, I'm lucky that like my mother, I am always smiling. It's very easy to get me to laugh. And I think that helps. Personality types bhi hote hain. And my mother, she was ill for over 20 years, but you never caught her not smiling. She never complained. I complain a lot, but she never complained. So I think part of that is inherited. Yeah. Part of it is, I think you've gone through life, you've seen things, you've dealt with a lot of issues, and so now you can say, okay, hota hai, koi baat nahi, let's move on and look at what we can do to be happier and to make other people happier. Yeah. So I'm focusing on that now and making people happy, making sure that there are things that you can do to change the way the country is perceived. All of that is something that brings joy to me. So I focus on those areas. And anybody tells me, pata hai, that person doesn't like you. I said, that's his problem.
They're bad.
Matlab, theek hai, everybody will not like you because they may disapprove of you. They may disapprove of the way you dress, the way you speak. I'm a very touchy-feely person. So I'm lucky that now I'm old enough, so कोई भी मेरी community में youngster जो है 20, 25, 30 साल का, उसको मैं जाके hug भी कर लेती हूँ, and nobody can say anything. And even if they do, it doesn't bother me. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, those are things that change your perception about the way the world is, and it also changes people who are around you. Yeah. कि भाई ठीक है वो कर रही हैं, उसमें कोई खराबी तो नहीं है. Why do we assume that this is correct and this is not? As long as you're not hurting anyone, why be judgmental? Yeah. So I think that's the answer. I've never really thought about it, but yeah, I'm generally a happy person.
I think as the big bird, you need to emit that warmth.
Exactly. I also have a big bird sitting in my office as well.
Cute.
कोई साइकोलॉजिस्ट को मार दे दिए जहां
वो बेचारी अभी तक सोच रही है कि क्या हुआ.
बेचारी, she's like, how do I tell my other patients to be like Jehan? That's the kind of person I need. So since we talked a little bit about this, I want to know कि अभी आप बात करी थी कि you look at other joys in your life and kind of focus on them. So since you're in so many things, like multiple hats you wear all the time, advisory में हैं, startups को कर रही हैं, you have a mashallah a huge social network that you have to deal with. That itself I feel is a job. When you have to de-stress, what do you do?
Stress तो
मतलब क्योंकि I agree, आपको तो शायद stress
नहीं stress होता है, सबको होता है.
Yeah.
I listen to music. I read.
Yeah.
Sometimes I watch a totally brainless sort of movie which is not going to involve anything, any sort of thing.
Yeah.
I hang out with friends.
Yeah.
Whom I know that whatever I say to, they will not judge me. So I think I'm blessed because I do have a group of friends I've known over 30 years, maybe more. And we understand each other. We are in totally different areas of work. but we understand each other and we know कि इस वक्त वो rant करें करने दो. So it helps.
Yeah.
When you have friends who are understanding, when you have friends who support you, health issues हो उसमें भी वो होते हैं. So I have survived cancer. I went through that. I had my friends who were around me. My father never knew I had cancer, and he was alive at that time. He thought I was on a vacation when I was in hospital.
Oh my
तो
God.
इस तरह की भी चीजें, it shows you what is important and what is not, and how lucky you are to survive such things and to have people around you, whether it's family, so my siblings as well as my friend. Without them, I wouldn't have survived it. So I think then everything else seems not so important.
Yeah.
I think that also has something to do with how you look at things later on. So
Makes sense.
I don't remember now what the question was. I got into
But you answered it correctly. So, so similar along those lines, are there any recommendations in terms of like books, music, कोई playlist जो आपकी special या
देखिए,
seasons?
हर आदमी की preference different होती है.
Yeah.
तो I enjoy most music except heavy metal. That I've never understood, but I know people enjoy that as well. Books mein, the hard thing about hard things is something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs should read.
Okay.
It has a lot of learning. It's very simple reading.
Yeah.
And it can apply to a lot of things that we do as entrepreneurs. I like science fiction, so I read quite a bit of science fiction. Business self-help books, jitni maine padhi hai na, if they were going to change the way life is, I would have been a very successful person. Self-help books, I think
you are a very successful person.
No, I think self-help books are cut out to be more than they are.
Yeah.
But it makes you feel better for a while.
That is true.
कि अच्छा हम ये steps लेंगे तो शायद ये ठीक हो जाए. So I do still read some self-help books, but I like to read a lot of fiction these days.
Yeah.
Business books mein, I think one of the ones that I really have enjoyed is that. And then The Power of Habit.
Oh, I read that book.
That is
very
a book.
nice.
And I think people, especially much younger people, don't understand that habit is something that you can develop over time.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very important book. Music mein to I listen to everything from the Beatles up to, Frank Sinatra to, some of the current music as well.
Nice,
Cliff
nice.
Richard ko to maine bahut suna hai. So I mean, I'm dated. I've shown you where I'm coming from. But I enjoy all kinds of music. Classical music I also like. So it depends on the mood.
Yeah.
I like to sing along and I can't sing to save my life. So I only sing when I'm driving and I'm alone.
Oh no, we were going to request you to sing a song for us.
When music laga ke and I sing along, it makes me happy.
Yeah.
You can deal with a lot of your moods by doing such things.
Yeah. Small
So
things.
my drive home is about 30 to 40 minutes. So it's enough either to listen to a podcast. Podcast mein main masterclass jo hai na, that's something that I enjoy because you can learn so many things. And very often in the car I've done that. Ki storytelling pe masterclass ho rahi hai, cooking pe masterclass ho rahi hai, how to grow a business pe masterclass ho rahi hai. So, that I think those podcasts are really very helpful or have been for me.
Yeah.
But it depends on what interests you.
Agreed.
Now there's a podcast on anything and everything.
That's so true.
And also there are people even locally जिन्होंने बहुत सी podcasts शुरू की हैं. I listen to some of them. I'm not an ardent follower of any one of those. But मैं Reid Hoffman की जो है वो podcast मैं बहुत सुनती हूँ because he talks to people who have grown, who have changed the way they started and what they are today. So उसमें learning बहुत होती है. So I like to listen to podcasts because my mind also wavers much like yours. So unless it's interesting, after a couple of minutes, they've lost me. So these are sort of interesting ones that I listen to. मगर अब थोड़ा बहुत कम भी कर दिया है इसलिए कि the brain is often very tired.
Agreed.
So you can't always be involved in such things. But reading I still enjoy. ये एक अफसोस है कि मैंने उर्दू नहीं पढ़नी सीखी. मतलब I know how to read Urdu but very simple Urdu. इसलिए कि मैंने during my high school days I had just come back from Hong Kong, तो मैंने गुलाबी उर्दू सीखी थी. तो उर्दू गैर मादरी ज़बान कहलाती थी. I mean, fortunately we always spoke Urdu at home.
Yeah.
तो मेरी उर्दू जो है ना वो accented नहीं है, नहीं तो मुझे बहुत अफसोस होता. But I feel that I miss out on a lot of very good literature because I don't know Urdu well enough to be able to enjoy it. तो ये मुझे अफसोस रहता है कि
पंजाबी हमारा कंटेंट भी बहुत मतलब उस तरह से
होगा, I'm sure, मगर
बट वो वाली उर्दू
पंजाबी तो
उर्दू तो मतलब अब पढ़ना मुझे लगता है हमसे भी
थोड़ा अब I
मुश्किल है.
think we're moving towards थोड़ा वाकई में उर्दू for everybody has
अरे
become
पॉडकास्ट सुन सकते हैं उर्दू में.
yes
That is true. उससे भी improve होगा.
अच्छा, weirdly I feel like पाकिस्तान में और इंडिया में there's this वो कि you know the better you are at English speaking तो बेहतर है, but whenever you go out in the world you see कि वो लोग अपनी national languages को बहुत बेहतर treat करते हैं. If you don't know how to speak their national language they'll be like यार हम क्या करें, हमारी national language सीख के, if you're speaking in English हमें कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ा.
अभी मैं मैक्सिको गई थी. Everybody speaks Spanish.
Yeah.
I got into some trouble because I didn't know what was being said. मैंने कहा अगली बार मैं आऊंगी तो स्पेनिश सीख के आऊंगी. मतलब why?
Yeah.
Google Translate नहीं होता ना तो मैं तो I was at a total loss. So technology is going to help us even if we don't know language.
100%.
But you're right. I mean, we should have more respect for our own local
own
languages. And मगर अंग्रेजी, unfortunately, if you have to deal with the world, or fortunately, तो अंग्रेजी you need to learn.
That is true.
And if you know English well, then you can communicate better.
Yeah.
तो लोग जो मुख्तलिफ ममालिक में रहते हैं, they learn multiple languages.
Yeah.
They start off with multiple languages.
yes.
तो आप अपनी भी ज़बान सीखें, अंग्रेजी भी सीखें, and if you can learn French or German, वो भी सीखें.
अच्छा, मजे की बात ये है कि we apparent, I don't know if it's true or not, but I was reading अभी recently कि we are apparently the 4th largest English speaking population. I was
Really?
like, wait, what? So I was reading up on the startup ecosystem in Pakistan और उसमें ना लिखा हुआ था कि what things support the ecosystem और उसमें एक बात ये लिखी हुई थी.
नहीं.
मैंने कहा यार क्या?
अंग्रेजी से ecosystem का कोई ताल्लुक नहीं.
No, so they were essentially talking about, you know, if you go out in the world and if you talk to people, तो it helps to know the language, जैसे आप बात करी थी. तो उसमें एक fact में लिखा हुआ था उन्होंने ये.
No, of course it helps. Everything helps. मगर इंडोनेशिया में जो most successful companies हैं, वो इसलिए successful नहीं है कि वो अंग्रेजी बोलती हैं. इसलिए they've come up, they've solved a problem that needed solving and they've scaled that problem. हाँ, अगर अंग्रेजी आती है तो they're able to speak to investors. अगर नहीं आती होती तो एक बीच में interpreter होता है जो आपको
बिल्कुल ऐसे.
जापान तो फिर तो बिल्कुल नहीं successful होता. No, I don't think that's और चाइना में how many people speak English? अब सीखना उन्होंने ज़्यादा younger people ने शुरू किया है. नहीं तो I mean they were successful as an economy despite the fact that they were not speaking English. तो I don't think so. हम लोग खामा में
वो मैं वही बात करती ना, हम I feel like ये पाकिस्तानी Indians I've seen like across the globe, they feel this certain वो कि यार अंग्रेजी सही बोल रही है. कभी-कभी हम अंग्रेजों से भी बेहतर अंग्रेजी बोल रहे होते हैं.
हाँ, बिल्कुल correct English तो हमारे यहाँ grammar जो है ना, that's true.
Yeah. Cool. I think usually so हम when we're wrapping up our podcast, usually ask the guests कि if they have to give a message to the audience, like what would it be? Given that you have so much experience, I feel like you can give multiple messages.
No, not really. I think you should be who you are.
Yeah.
Recognize yourself for what you know. Don't let anyone tell you it can't be done.
Yeah.
These are all things that, you know, hold you back. And why should anyone want to hold you back? We have so many talented individuals in this country, both men and women. We should be supporting them. If you can support even one or two people to become who they are, then I think you've done something that is great for this country and for society in general.
Yeah.
So I would say that, and I think all of us know this. Nobody has to give us this advice. मैंने सोचा ऐसे ही दे दूँ.
नहीं जान, thank you so much.
Actually इसकी जरूरत नहीं थी.
नहीं, I think sometimes we just need to be told. Sometimes repeatedly जितना हमें वो पता चलता रहे उतना ज़्यादा बेहतर होता है हमारे दिमागों के लिए वो absorb.
It reminds us.
It reminds us, yes.
Thank you so much for putting up with all the I don't know whether it was useful information, whether it was fun, but I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so much.
We loved the conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Good luck with your podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.